Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity for you and this committee to listen to the members and to take the ideas that we're hearing from our constituents as we testify before the Budget Committee today. I'm honored to be here with you, and I look forward to working with all of you as we move through this process. And as I was sitting here waiting to testify, I just noticed that these name cards have Office Depot, one of the main businesses in my community. Office Depot, along with a lot of our small businesses, are the kinds of businesses that are helping engineer our recovery. And I just want to acknowledge not only that business, but a lot of our other local small businesses, because as we're working through this budget is going to be all about the plans and the architecture for getting small businesses, which are the engine to our whole economy, back on track. Madam Chair, we recently experienced the worst financial downturn since the Great Depression, and it's going to take a serious effort, not only by Congress, but the public and private sector, to get our economy back on track. Unemployment remains unacceptably high, and serious problems remain in the residential mortgage and commercial real estate markets. Small businesses, as we know, are struggling to access credit on reasonable terms, and I personally have spent a lot of time in my district and here working on getting banks to apply prudent standards but make capital available for our small businesses. We are fortunately seeing signs of economic recovery, with the gross domestic product increasing even more than we expected in the fourth quarter, very positive numbers. And it's not going to be easy, but we know that America will recover from this economic slump, and most importantly, we have to use this moment as a time to craft the plans how we can make our economy stronger than ever over the next number of years. Emergency measures were taken last year by this Congress to prevent the current collapse or the complete collapse of our financial system. And these policy responses were essential to planning for a successful economic recovery. However, as the economy continues to grow more and more and Americans are able to go back to work, we must turn our attention to reducing long-term budget deficits and reducing our national debt. In South Florida, we know that tough times mean tightening our belts. Times like this require cutting back. This applies to our personal family budgets, our businesses, and our government, no exceptions. Unfortunately, some in Washington missed that memo. For years, spending has been out of control, and it's time for all of us to take real steps to reduce our deficit. As a state legislator in Florida, I participated in a balanced budget process for 14 consecutive years. And I have been and will continue to fight to bring that kind of fiscal discipline to Washington as we begin to come out of this downturn. My parents were a public school teacher, my mom, and my dad was a small business owner. He had a variety stores. Many of you might remember what variety stores were. My wife and I passed that lesson on the value of a dollar that my parents taught me onto our children. Like so many of our community, we teach our kids you have to live within your means. If you can't afford something, you can't buy it. It's as simple as that. Well, it's time that we heed that advice in Washington as well. And that's why I'm particularly pleased that something that I've been working on, along with many of you, passed recently, and that's PAYGO legislation. The President signed it a week ago. PAYGO says that Congress can only create new programs that are fully paid for and do not increase the deficit. I've supported the passage of this legislation since I arrived in Congress, and I'm glad it is finally the law. We know that PAYGO works. It was in place in the 1990s, and we saw budget surpluses. We had a deficit to start with, and over that decade, we made that a surplus, we as Americans. When it was abandoned in 2000, our deficit exploded over the last number of years. That cannot and will not be the case anymore, as we have now passed PAYGO. Now, this is a good first step to rein in our budget, but there must be more. Government programs that aren't serving the American people cost us billions of dollars a year. We need to review the budget line by line and squeeze out every possible penny of savings, including cutting programs that aren't working or that duplicate each other. Further, I'm introducing legislation that puts us on a path to fiscal responsibility and balanced budgets. My bill, Madam Chair, will require Congress to reduce spending each year until the budget is balanced, laying out a clear roadmap to getting our deficit under control. Specifically, my legislation will require the Budget Committee to include a detailed benchmark plan to eliminate the budget deficit by 2020 in the current budget resolution, including reconciliation instructions to committees as necessary to carry out the plan. After the roadmap is established, each subsequent budget resolution must meet the goals laid out by the Budget Committee to reduce the deficit. If future budget resolutions do not meet the benchmarks, then it would not be in order to consider the budget resolution in either the House or the Senate, except for times of economic emergency or war. To balance our budget, we will have to make tough choices. Putting this roadmap into place and including enforceable points of order will require Congress to decide what priorities are most important, just like families in South Florida and around the country do every day. Madam Chair, working together, I really believe we can ensure our government continues to meet its commitments and provides a foundation for economic growth while protecting Medicare, Social Security, and other vital programs. We have many opportunities ahead to strengthen our great country, and I look forward to working with you, Madam Chair, our colleagues in the Congress, and the President to ensure that we keep our fiscal house in order. And I thank you very much for the time.